It is April 17th, daily number 5, and also it's National Haiku Day. So I guess
is April 17th.
I like
Daily
let's do
number 5.
Overwatch,
And also,
dailies are really
National Haiku Day.
awesome.
So I
Let's
guess
start.
is April 17th.
So let's start the
Let's
show.
do
Bam,
5
got it.
Overwatch.
All right, enough of that.
Also,
Enough of that.
are
We're
really
going to do Rogue versus Selfless,
Haiku Day. Awesome.
and this was a really epic match.
Let's
Very,
start.
very hype.
So let's start the show.
Very
Bam,
hype.
Got it. All right.
So, DeFran here, opening it up. I know there's a little bit of echo, but it's gone now. It's gone now. There's a little. So DeFran is opening up with a Widowmaker here, trying to look around because they're kind of worried about an aggressive sort of setup. Because teams tend to, it's becoming more and more popular for teams to sit up here on the buildings, do stuff aggressive, and Widowmaker it does a pretty decent job of shutting that down. But he's also staying on it for quite a while. And here he tries to get even this cheeky little shot onto Soon playing Tracer and winds up wasting a decent amount of time. You can see it's already 3:38 and still hasn't swapped off to the Soldier. It will be a Soldier. Yep, there it is. No, there it is. DeFran on Selfless on attack. And so let's take a look now at the two team compositions. Winston just died. All right. So remember, that was a Winston. Selfless running pretty traditional triple tank, deathball-y comp. This is like the comp that people run, right? And so on the other side, Rogue is running the opposite and for their defense. They're running very, very divey. They're running triple DPS, Nico and Soon on Tracer and Genji. Only one tank with Nox playing Winston. And then AKM is, of course, playing Soldier. And interestingly enough, they have two very sort of backline-y supports. They don't have any Lucio on this team. So the result of this is that up here, their supports are sitting, and they're all alone, basically. If Selfless happened to be running a dive composition, then they could jump over and kill the DPS, the supports pretty easily, without too much of a problem. But because they're running this triple tank composition, they're kind of countered because they can't get up and actually take advantage of the fact that Rogue is running this kind of greedy composition. So they will be stuck here for a little while as Soon is just a god and stalls them out for like 30 seconds on Tracer all by himself. Even gets a kill onto Kresnik, the Reinhardt player for the attackers, Selfless. But finally, and inevitably, Selfless does break through. This was not meant to hold forever. Rogue did not mean for this to hold forever. This is just meant to hold for a pretty good amount of time. It's meant to just bide time. You saw Soon was stalling out. When Soon died, then Nico was stalling out. And that's kind of how it went. So finally, Selfless does win, although it took them a minute and a half to do it. So decent chunk of time taken off the clock. But they're pushing up now. The issue, though, is that Rogue unfortunately got a couple seconds behind. Plus, they still haven't swapped off to a Lucio, so it's a pretty long time for them to get back onto the point. By the time they get back here, Selfless is already so far pushed up that there isn't too much that this very divey sort of composition from Rogue rather, can do. AKM tries to do the whole nano visor thing, runs into a couple shields, couldn't quite get through there. But this team composition from Selfless will always win in a straight up fight versus this team composition. There's no way that this could ever win in just like you stand here, I stand here, and let's go punch each other sort of thing. And that's the result of Rogue being pushed back so far, so they couldn't possibly retake it. And then if AKM managed to find a way around a shield, maybe something would have happened. But DeFran there dying, crazy in the back. He was trying to do some weird flankeroni with his visor, but he got found out. Very good job by Rogue, checking all those corners, checking everywhere, not letting them get killed by any stupid, silly cheese. But here, Selfless is actually going to get stalled out for quite a while. Selfless is going to take pretty much the full 3 minutes to just clear this corner, basically, this section of the map. And so they're still running the triple tank, meaning they have pretty much no mobility in order to actually get up here and deal with this really relatively squishy backline for Rogue. And so when you're in the situation where, okay, they have a really squishy backline, it's juicy, let's go kill them, but we're not running dive, you either run dive, or you go and you try to get around and actually fight them on the high ground. The different maps are different, but here on Dorado, there is a way. On Dorado, you can go back through this back stairs, go up and around, and actually fight. And there's no way, as we just saw in a straight up fight, that... Alright, I'll change the volume. Alright, so there's no way, as we just saw in a straight up fight, that Rogue can ever beat Selfless with these two team compositions. Especially up in this building here, it's very, very congested, right? Very, very short, narrow spaces. Selfless can just come in with all their tanks and stuff and punch Rogue straight off of that high ground. And they won't do that. But I want you to keep that in mind as a possibility as we go through. So, Selfless will get routed here because Rogue is sitting up on the high ground and no one can contest them at all. The only people that can really even shoot up here, the only person rather, is Defran. Defran is the only person on all of Selfless that can even get any amount of DPS up onto this high ground. So, now that they have been killed, there still is no swap. Selfless will still stay on here, but they're just going to keep doing the same thing, trying to get there somehow. As far as ultimates go, they do have Defran with the visor. Michael 3D has the nano boost, but still without too much ability to leverage that into anything up on the high ground, not much is going to necessarily come from it. By the way, we're looking at Nico right now. There's a giant team fight going on. Also, I know that Sinatra swapped off to the Mercury, and we will discuss that in just a second. But there's a team fight. Defran did manage to kill AKM, who jumped off, and we also have a kill on Dasun. But, and now we're going to see why the switch to the McCree is just okay. It's just okay, because now McCree isn't going to be quite as peely as a Zarya, right? So we saw Nico was able to do a little bit more than he normally would have been able to do with the blade. And although the reason that Selfless picked the McCree was so that maybe they could project a little bit of damage up onto the high ground more than they could with the Zarya, but still it did wind up making their backline a little bit overly squishy against this literally all-in composition here from Rogue. If they were to do the 2-2-2 composition from Selfless, I would think maybe a Genji or a Tracer in order to try to do a flank around. That way they wouldn't be quite... They would maybe shy away a little bit from their backline heaviness. But they swap right back onto the Zarya because either they just didn't like it or they figured, well, we rounded the corner already, so we don't need the McCree anymore. They get taken out. And now with only a minute remaining, they're in a bit of trouble. They don't really have any ultimates. Kresnik has an Earth Shatter, but again, because their problem is with the high ground. The problem was with the high ground, not the low ground. Earth Shatter isn't going to help you there. Michael 3D has gotten up his nano boost, but again, not much you can do with that. Defran here switches, and so you can see Selfless is looking for a way around. Selfless is looking for a way to somehow project something up onto this high ground because they can't just they can't find a way. And I think it would be as simple, like I said, as walking up the stairs back there and looping around. But they don't want to go for that option. So instead, Defran switches off to the Widowmaker. It's almost like, it almost feels like that, like in solo queue, like, oh, we're losing, and the DPS swaps off to Widowmaker because that'll help. Now, there is a reason for this, obviously. They want to project more power up there. And so a little bit more of a mobile hero like a Widowmaker who can grapple up, who can shoot onto the high ground from various angles that Dorado provides you with. We'll give that to you. But still, I would have liked to see them I would like to see them try at some point going up the stairs. And oh dear, Doesn't this look? This looks like it's over. This game looks like it's 100% over. We have wins with the Transcendence, just in case anything goes wrong. Nano Visor up here on the high ground. Selfless hasn't done anything with the high ground so far, so this is fully expected to just completely destroy everyone. But unfortunately, AKM steps a little bit too close, and Emong gets a really nice hook off. And as a result of that, Wins tries to use Transcendence to save AKM because he sees, oh, AKM didn't get one shot. I better try to save him with Transcendence. And he was too late. So we wind up having AKM burn the visor, the nano visor even. Wins burn the Transcendence. Also soon, at some point, tried to put a bomb down. That wasn't as big of a deal. But basically, just a whole debacle of a situation there resulted in Selfless pushing through, when really I thought that was Rogue's fight to take. They should have just taken the map right there. But it's all right. Pushed through the gate. Selfless did a nice job. Of course, Emong getting that hook was really, really clutch. That was the hook that saved the checkpoint, essentially. So now they're pushing up, and, well, we'll see what they decide to do here in just a second. But they will decide to, once our camera turns around here, they will decide to go this way. They're just straight up. And this is, again, very difficult for triple tank compositions to deal with. Because, well, you're just pushing up. You don't have much mobility. You can't possibly have any impact on the high ground here. It's just not really going to happen. And we will see them kind of pay for it. Plus, you're also leaving this thing open back here, this stairwell. And when Michael 3D is standing back there, it can result in a little bit of an issue. So jump in, you see Blade used, and there you go. All the backline goes down. So here, I think that Selfless is just doesn't quite have optimal attack paths on Dorado versus this particular composition. And Rogue, of course, doing a good job of punishing it every single step of the way. Except for AKM stepping up just a tad too far, but then again, Emong had really good reactions to stop him. So with 29 seconds remaining, we see Sinatra does have a Zarya ultimate, and Zarya ultimate is super strong against teams that don't have Reinhardts or teams that don't have on-demand shields. Now, Rogue's team composition tries to counteract this by having two support ultimates, defensive ultimates. They have both Unko with his Transcendence and Wins with the Sound Barrier, but we don't have those. Meaning, if Sinatra hits just any decent Graviton at all, then Selfless wins pretty hard. Pretty hard. So, trades come out. Kresnik actually dies very early on, booped off. Very, very devastating for a triple tank composition, but like I said before, all you need to do is just find a Graviton Surge at all, and you win. Not a big deal there. Rogue clumped up slightly, but at the same time, Sinatra has such a good eye on Zarya that it's really hard to avoid getting at least a double Graviton off on your team, let alone, even three, as we just saw there, is not something crazy. So AKM does have the visor again. And we're going to see what he does with it again. So unfortunately, he just finds the Reinhardt shield. And Selfless actually does quite a good job of cutting this around. And Defran has a sick shot, really, onto AKM. He did have his own visor, but good positioning there. Wins. The only one left to contest the point, and it's not going to be enough, of course. So Selfless just barely wind up taking this first point, partly due to some good plays when they really needed it, but also partly due to Rogue dropping a couple things here or there, because Rogue really looked like they had the defense set, and Selfless looked a bit unsure. Well, they just kept trying the same thing over and over and over on attack, and eventually Rogue made a slight slip up, and Selfless was always there to take advantage of it. So let's look at this next round here. Rogue will be attacking now on the blue team. And we'll actually, we had a pause. Okay. And Rogue will be playing Super Mega Dive Doom composition. As you see here, they're running triple DPS with AKM on Pharah instead of Soldier. So that's just like super mobility all the way. Of course, single tank being Winston. and they are running the Zenyatta in the not Lucio slot. Selfless is running, again, triple tank, classic, to the T, not a problem. And Rogue runs a very interesting push here. I mean, it's not actually a very new push at all, but they run a certain type of push here. We'll see it. Don't blink, guys. Don't blink. Here we go. Doors open up. Speed boost comes out. AKM jumps up. Genji jumps up soon around the back. And whoa, look at that. All of a sudden, Defran's dead. All the flankers are in the back line. And this is looking quite tragic for Selfless. So let's actually go ahead and take a look at that one more time, because I think that this is an important sort of thing. And Selfless's composition is actually really good against it. It's not necessarily super terrible. So AKM jumps up, tries to fish for some sort of boop with his concussive blast, doesn't find it. Okay. So the key part of this is Winston jumps up, puts the shield down. So now nobody can shoot forward. AKM jumps up, shooting rockets down. We see Soon also flanks around. She came around from Archway and hitting the back. And there's also Nico on Genji who jumped up, and he's all set to dash through. And basically the Pharah, well, they're going to target call someone, whether it be Michael 3D or Fran or anybody. And so here they target called the soldier. So AKM shoots at the soldier, Soon shoots at the soldier, the Genji shoots at the soldier, and rip. That's what's supposed to happen. But really, there's a lot of peel. Like a lot of peel on Selfless. They have a Zarya, they have a Roadhog, they have, I mean, they have a shield from Reinhardt, right? They have a Lucio who can boot people. So I think that if Selfless was a little bit more aggressive here, just a little bit more confident in their peelers and didn't quite just run full sprint away, they would have been able to stop this. There's lots of things that they could have done. Shielding the people who are in trouble. Now there's a shield here. It looks like that's Sinatra shielding herself. So he still has another shield to be used on an ally. Emong still has the hook. This is a very easy hook target here on AKM. This is a very easy hook target back here. So I think that they were just taken a little bit by surprise. Defran gets direct rocketed, which is 6 skill from AKM, of course. And then Michael 3D goes down. And Emong misses the hook. So, like I said, tragic overall for Selfless, but they had the tools to stop this push. And I think that just a little bit more experience with it, maybe, would help out. Because they definitely look very scared. They're like, oh man, everyone run away. So here we go, pushing through again. But like I said, Selfless, this team composition, beats this one in a straight up fight. So the fact that the flankers and mobile heroes from Rogue are kind of all still back here near the point is letting Selfless get a lot of ground. They'll be able to get whatever they want coming in here. Also, unfortunately, Nico, his shoulder's actually poking out when he steps up a little bit. Yeah, see, they can see him because they have a wide angle. So he actually goes down pretty low as well. He was forced, so yeah, he gets healed up here. But because he had to come back to heal up, he's now no longer out doing what Genji should be doing. So they're starting with their Genji in a bit of an awkward position. And as a result, Selfless comes in with relatively low pressure put on them and just sort of whomps through, because that's just what their team composition does. But still no ultimates for them yet. Still no ultimates yet. Nico has the Blade. AKM has the Rocket Barrage. It's really good with Blade because, you know, probably the best distraction for a Rocket Barrage is having a shouting anime character slicing through your team. And there's no barrier yet from Dak, rather. So this is looking like a pretty promising fight for Rogue. They're kind of deciding, okay, who are we going to go on? Are they going to go on the Soldier, the Ana? That's the key. Who's it going to be? Well, it looks like Nico is focusing on the Soldier, but everyone else is focusing on the Ana. Well, the Rocket Barrage does wind up getting the Ana. Very well done, though, by the way, like brilliant, actually, by Michael 3D getting off the nano boost before he dies. Just a second before he dies, even. And the damage reduction was able to save Defran. He was able to get his ultimate at the very last second, clear everyone out, and now they have a Lucio barrier. So they're looking very strong for this next fight. Nico can do all the terrible things that you might expect a Genji to do. So all they have to do is use it. Sinatra also coming dangerously close to a Graviton Surge. And I said before that Rogue very, very instantly dies to a Graviton Surge. So we'll just have to see how it goes. Unfortunately, the Lucio didn't quite pop the barrier in time. And as a result, 2 team members died very, very early on. And so when the barrier was finally used, it was kind of too late. So Lucio barrier, when you have this sort of team composition where only the Lucio is your only defensive out against, this sort of thing, with Nico and having the blade, it's very important. Like, a lot of pressure is put onto that Lucio player. A lot of pressure. And so it's not like it happens that the ultimate gets messed up. It happens. It's not going to be a 100% sort of thing. And that's one of the core things that differentiates Lucio players is the percentage of really, really good sound barriers. So now, Rogue does a really, really good job of knocking Selfless off of the high ground early on with their pressure. They came in, they pressured the doorway. They came in pressured over here. And so that's one of the key differences between, well, a really mobile comp and Selfless's really heavy tank composition. Rogue can just very easily, they don't have to do anything strange on Dorado. They can just jump up, put pressure on, and not really have Selfless stay on the high ground to begin with. And they did a very good job of utilizing that strength. And so now, without the high ground, Selfless is in a little bit of an off position. Fortunately, Kresnik gets a very, very nice Earth Shatter with two kills, I believe, with that. They also popped Defran with the Visor and Nano Boost. So Selfless was up quite a bit in ultimates. They used it, and they got a lot of value out of it. Rogue, however, didn't use any of themselves. Very smart by Anko. He did get his Transcendence halfway through the fight, but he didn't use it at all. So Rogue has actually had pretty good ultimate economy, utilization, whatever you want to call it. Big words, many syllables throughout. Well, Rogue just is pretty good at that in general. So coming up now again, no high ground notice. No high ground at all for Selfless. So Rogue is just taking this at least even. At least even. Genji can just do whatever he wants on the high ground. He did pop the blade as well. And like I said, though, Zarya ultimate is pretty good against teams that have no outs to it. AKM, though, just this entire match, AKM people have had a really hard time killing this guy. He's just flying around. No one's shooting him. And so partly, AKM is just really, really, really good at finding, and this is something with Pharah players, when you see a Pharah player, it's like, well, why don't they just shoot him? Why don't they just shoot him? Well, seeing which people on the other team is paying attention to who, what are your flankers doing? So even really dangerous things, dangerous positions with Pharah can actually not be that dangerous as long as the big threats to you are not paying attention. AKM is really good at threading that needle. So a fight just happened. Stuff went down. It's whatever. AKM got another giant rocket barrage. But at that point, it was already a little bit too late. Selfless had quite a bit of an advantage. And here we go. 2 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock for Rogue to push to the end or Selfless to potentially win the map. And now, as far as team compositions go, we still have the same sort of thing going on. Notice that Rogue is still running the Zenyatta and Lucio. And again, it's because they're playing an incredibly aggressive sort of team. Unko can just put his Harmony Orb on someone, run away. And also, because they don't have a Reinhardt, they have nothing to stop this big, big Wombo combo. 1, 2, 3 big, terrible, catastrophic ults for Selfless. They kind of need the 2 defensive ultimates to even get by. They kind of need that. A Mercy would technically work a little bit here, but Zenyatta a little bit more aggressive. Kresnik threaded the needle there, really. I mean, can we see how close that was? I mean, woohoo, that was real close. But Kresnik winds up getting 3. Easy peasy. Call it a deal. But Defran pops the ultimate here. Oh no, that's unfortunate. I'm saying Rogue is really good with their ultimates. Selfless is generally a little bit more liberal. And sometimes being liberal doesn't always net you the best thing. So Defran and Michael popped their nanovisor combo after all the stuff already went down for that fight. So now they won't have it here, and it might be a little bit rough. Notice that they are holding the high ground pretty well, so I'm not sure we'll jump down to contest this because Soon is just such a monster at contesting carts, by the way, on Tracer. He's so good at it. He just slips through. A very potentially nice pulse bomb gets narrowly avoided. Now, I'm not really sure what Defran was doing there. Gotta say. And by I'm not really sure, I mean, I do know exactly what he was doing. But it just didn't quite work out, I think, the way he planned. First of all, he was spotted by Soon. That was like one single frame. I mean, I know that we have really pixelated stuff going on our stream, but on our screen, more pixelation than obviously the players see. But Defran just runs by. Soon sees him for like one little millisecond. Also gets the call from Nico, who saw him as well. And so AKM was obviously trying to get the high ground there. Trying to get the high ground, went the dangerous route instead of the safe route and got punished for it. Rogue, like I said before, like these teams are so good at just bam, bam, bam. They're on you every time you make a mistake, no matter what. So 1 minute remaining. The cart's pushing. It's all up to Selfless to try to stall this for as long as possible because they're not going to win this at this point. So all they can do is really stall. Really nice triple shuriken and plus dash from Nico. Gets an early kill onto their Lucio earlier than maybe he normally would have died. But besides that, cleanup happens. They wind up stalling for a good 10 seconds or so. And hey, there you go. 50 seconds left on the clock, plus 1 minute for each. Gives us 1 minute versus 1 minute and 50 seconds. And so, what's the difference there? Is 1 minute 50 seconds actually twice as good as a minute? That's a good question. You have to think about the number of team fights you get. So, generally, if you have 1 minute, well, you have to push through that initial junk in the beginning, and then you maybe get like one team fight. One really solid, good team fight, and then maybe if you're really fast, like I mean really, really fast, so you can get another half of a team fight or so. So that's what you get with 1 minute. You get like one team fight. Maybe 1.5. All right. With 1 minute and 50 seconds, you potentially get at least another 2, because 50 seconds, you push up really fast, die, push up really fast again, it's an overtime. So we're talking about one team fight, maybe 1.5, but that half a team fight is kind of junk, right? Versus 3 team fights. So actually, the way the clock works, 1 minute 50 seconds is more than double 1 minute here, on Dorado especially. So, Rogue actually coming in with a pretty sizable advantage. Based on just the time. So now, Rogue is on defense, and Selfless is trying their own Super Mongo divey dive. Defran jumps up, and now this composition from Rogue, this is the comp that gets destroyed by this dive, because there's no Reinhardt to stop them, there's no Zarya to peel, there's no Roadhog to peel. All they have is they just die. That's it, they just lose. There's literally no way to stop this if Selfless actually executes it properly. So this was a really, really good meta call by Selfless. Notice that they didn't do this last time. So they're saying, okay, well, Rogue's going to run that defense. Let's just go and kill him. Pretty simple. Plus, it also bypasses. So you know how, like I was saying before, teams like to do this whole thing where they play the buildings and they play over here and they do this aggressive, cute little thing to stall you out early on this point of Dorado. That just completely bypasses it. They're like, no, screw all that. We'll just jump right by. So very well done by Selfless there, identifying that. Nico is still alive. Just does a little pokey, gets out alive. 67% ultimate already from him, so that was some pretty severe pokey, if you will. And now we are having our fight. By the way, look at the clock. This is This is that one fight I was talking about. I said you get about one team fight, and that's it. And I don't lie. At least not usually. So, as we progress through, AKM is up on the high ground. And no one's really addressing him at all. Notice that, by the way, Selfless has swapped off completely to a triple tank composition, away from their normal divey dive that they're, well, the divey dive thing that they're running before. And as a result, they don't have any answer to AKM. He's just sort of sitting up here. He already has the visor. It's going to come up very, very soon, and there it is. Manages to just barely kill the Lucio player before he gets past the shield of the Reinhardt. But Sinatra, with a nice little flank around with a lot of energy, manages to actually take him out. So finally, they deal with AKM. That was a good, I mean, someone had to do it, right? But still, a good job of Sinatra. First of all, having all that energy, going up, taking out AKM, because if he didn't do it, surely they would have just lost. Emong, by the way, very, very, like, did you see that? Did you see that? You guys see that? We're going to just quickly, bam, right click. See you later soon. One shot, and then a nice little hook. So that was pretty classy there by Emong. And that saved his team actually a lot of time getting those very quick kills on the Lucio and Tracer. Normally, Selfless has been having a bit of an issue finishing those off. But Emong takes it out, and because of that, they're able to actually just push the card through very, very quickly. So now, we have a little bit of a conundrum here with our ultimates. We have a lot by Selfless. We have a lot, right? And Rogue, they have a lot also. And you can pretty much imagine that by now it's already been about 2 minutes into the match. Well, I don't know why I'm circling that, but it's been about 2 minutes into this particular game. You can imagine that they're coming up on the barrier. That they're coming up on the barrier pretty soon. Now, the way you want to manage your ults is, do you want to run them all into the barrier? Well, you're on attack, right, versus defense. It becomes a little bit of an interesting question. So we'll see how Selfless answers it first. And Rogue also answers it first before we really talk about it too much. By the way, Win's a little bit out of position there. Tried to just quickly slip by Emong, like, please miss. And no, he didn't. He didn't quite miss. Sinatra does burn the ultimate, and it was very liberal use of his ultimate. And so clearly Selfless is saying, hey, we've already done pretty well. A minute to get this far is pretty solid. That's not bad at all. We've done very well. So using ultimates to just get a little bit further very liberally, not too bad. Plus they don't have any Lucio barrier anymore, though. That might be a little unfortunate, and as a result they just get nanovisored, bladed, killed to death. But they would have gotten shredded anyway, even with the Lucio there. So it's not too big of a deal. And Rogue decided to, by the way, on Rogue's side, they decided to just wait. They were like, okay, we're just gonna wait for the nanovisor and the blade and the barrier, so that we'll definitely stop them at that point. It was basically, we didn't want to bleed out any more time that we didn't have to. So 1 minute and 50 seconds remaining. Let's see what Rogue does. It's coming down to the wire. If you haven't watched it yet, I guess I won't spoil it yet. We'll have to decide. So now, once again, Selfless running their triple tank, super death ball, and Rogue running super dive, divey dive with AKM. They're going to do this fast break play again, where AKM jumps up, the Tracer goes around, but AKM does a little bit different. A little variation, and I like this. Same play, slightly different, makes a very confused Selfless. And as a result, Defran, who ran all the way back, even further than normal, actually just ran straight into AKM's rocket, essentially. So really well done by AKM, doing a little bit of difference there. But as I said before, Selfless has the tools to stop this. They should stop this push with this triple tank thing, by the way. AKM narrowly avoiding a hook there. And they do manage to actually stop it. Although AKM with that Long range rack. He just keeps getting those on Defran. That must be really, really frustrating. And as a result, Defran goes down. And once your soldier goes down in this death ball-y sort of composition, it's a real big suffer. It's really hard for you to stay in the fight. And indeed, Selfless, unfortunately, can't quite stay in. But it's not quite done yet. They still have the gate to approach. And Selfless still has their triple tank comp. Coming up on a few ultimates, actually, of their own. So here we go. Gate opens up. And now they're about 2 team fights away. Because I don't think ACAM can quite see the end here. But the end is like... I can't do it. There's no like... I can't draw in a 3-dimensional way. But the end is right around this bend. So if they fight right here, they have enough time to respawn and fight them at the end where the cart belongs. So actually, Rogue has to win 2 fights. Selfless has to lose 2 fights. Okay. Also, remember, Rogue has 2 support defensive ultimates. Very important. By the way, we didn't see Nico, but Emong probably got another sick hook to stop him very early on. And Unko dies as well. The camera wasn't on that happening, so I'm very surprised. I think he might have gotten long-range Sinatra bomb. So now we're down to just overtime, basically. This is one fight. And let's bring up the conundrum of ultimate management again. So, oh, I waited too long. I was trying to wait for Sinatra to have full ultimate so I could demonstrate a little bit clearer. All right, let's talk about it now, though. Sinatra has an ultimate. Defran has an ultimate. Kresnik will have an ultimate. And Dak will have an ultimate. All right. And then Rogue, obviously, this is their last fight for them, so they have to use something here. Preferably before Dak gets an ultimate, but if he has it already, he has it, right? You can't really stop it with you can't really stop it with a rocket barrage. So ACAM, again, no one's really good at shooting ACAM, I noticed. Finally he goes down though. And so people kind of got it. This is a really crucial point of the match. People were really getting on Sinatra for using the Zarya ultimate here. And they wondered why. Why would you use the ultimate when you have another fight? Why didn't they do what Rogue did before? So why didn't they do what Rogue did before and just save up all the ultimates and then use it all in one big fight? The reason is because Rogue was holding on to 2 defensive support ultimates. So if it got down to the last fight and Selfless blew everything, they would be running into a Transcendence and a Sound Barrier. Can't beat that. They would effectively counter all the ultimates from Selfless. So they had to stagger it out a little bit. Sinatra at that point the fight was even, so Sinatra was trying to just use the ultimate to bait out one of the defensive things from Rogue. And you can see it did. Unko used his ultimate. It also caused Nico to use his ultimate as well. Soon would have used the bomb anyway. That doesn't matter. So this one Graviton burned a lot from Rogue. Because remember, Rogue cannot lose this fight. They cannot lose this fight. So they're not going to say, oh, it's all right, Sinatra used Graviton, we'll just let it go. They have to stop it no matter what. Even if they think that they might win the fight otherwise, they're definitely going to stop it. And so Sinatra got big, big value out of this Graviton surge. Big, big value. Unfortunately, they wind up still losing the fight, but it's okay. They have one more fight. They have Barrier. They have Defran Visor. They have potentially coming up a Nano on it, although it's not really guaranteed. It's kind of hard to get 25% as Ana by the time Defran will use the ultimate. Also, Emong has Whole Hog, which not bad either. Not bad at all. And because, like I said before, I'm going to say it again, because, where was I? Oh, Sinatra used his Graviton Surge earlier on Zarya. Now we are missing this. These ultimates would have been here otherwise. Right, okay. So let's have this big climactic final fight of Destiny. Defran pops the visor, doesn't find anything. We see he gets shut down by the Winston barrier completely and kind of bullied around. Also, notice that Emong dies before he can use the whole hog. And so Selfless just couldn't quite get... I mean, I think that Selfless predicted incorrectly how far along this cart was, because if you look, there's still a decent amount of way for this cart to go. Yeah, there it is. They still had a good 2 seconds, I think, left here that they could have gotten to a little bit more position. Emong could have done something a bit better. But still, it was pretty close. Look at this. That is very close. And also, if Emong had lived, that would have been a much better target for Michael to use for his nano boost. Defran, who got shut down out of the fight earlier, gets killed as well. All right. So, what would have happened if Sinatra did not use the Graviton Surge? Well, first of all, he'd be playing good old Zarya instead of Tracer. And so it's very easy to say somewhere around, I don't know, here, where it's like, what if this was a Graviton Surge? Oh my gosh, that'd be sick. Well, Nico would have had Blade, like I said, and Unko would not have died because Unko would have had his Transcendence. So, I don't think that it was a bad play for Sinatra to use the Graviton Surge there. So, don't hate on it. That's all I have to say. He's getting a lot of flack on Reddit and stuff. So, that's it, guys. That was the game. Selfless. Everyone was rooting for Selfless. Selfless was considered the underdog. They big love for Selfless, and unfortunately they did wind up losing. It was so close, though. It was such a good game. Such a good game. Came down to the wire. One of the closest games people have seen in a playoff situation in a long time. So, that was pretty cool. Let's watch the play of the game here real quick. It was, Nico slicing people up. And I will take questions now. We can have some questions from the chat. Dirty. So good. Easter was yesterday. I didn't know until I ran to the gym, and the gym was closed. I was like, the gym's closed? Oh, it's Easter. And then I had to call a bunch of family members and relatives and act completely natural. Like, oh, hey, yeah, I woke up really late, sleeping in. Happy Easter, of course. Of course, happy Easter. Of course. That would have been unfortunate. I wouldn't have known that it was Easter otherwise, because actually, so on my YouTube, and I can see like how many people view my YouTube, right? So on the day that Uprising was released, massive drop in views. Massive, like literally 25% of my normal views. Like the moment, like that exact hour, 2 o'clock or whenever it was that Uprising was released, it was like boom, no one was viewing anything anymore. It was like, oh well, clearly everyone's playing the game. So that was like a big event, right? Easter, not even a blip, not even a single, like not even a little dip, not even 5%, like completely like nothing even happened. So Overwatch Uprising was like apparently way bigger to Overwatch players than Easter. Fun fact. So let's read some questiones. Do you think Sinatra switching to Diva after using his grav would have worked? Would he have gotten the ult ready for cart clearing in time? He would have almost certainly not gotten the ultimate ready in time, because it does take a pretty decent... Oh. I think the music's too loud. Oh yeah, you're right. It is. It is too loud. You're right. Let's say it again. Do you think Sinatra switching to Diva after using his grav would have worked? Because remember, Sinatra switched to Tracer, not Diva. Would he have gotten the ult ready for cart clearing in time? So, like I said, he wouldn't have gotten the ult ready in time. Diva does take a little decent amount of time to work, to come up. I think that swapping to Diva, remember, So Diva would have given them a little bit of extra shove on that high ground. Remember when Winston jumped up, harassed the soldier, the Diva could have maybe cleared him off a little bit. But remember, Diva can't defense matrix against a Winston, and Diva can't defense matrix against like two people coming from two different directions. So while I think that a Diva would have certainly been a strong option, like I think that if he had picked Diva, that wouldn't have been wrong. I do actually like the Tracer because remember, there was a Zenyatta on the low ground, and Sinatra killed that Zenyatta very, very fast. So I like it. Like I said before, if they had picked the 2-2-2, I would have liked to see a Tracer or a Genji because they could take care of that greedy backline. So they knew, by the way, that Zenyatta had just popped his ultimate, so he was basically Tracer food at that point. And Sinatra's a great Tracer. He played really well at the end there. He actually almost got a pulse bomb. So I think that it was a pretty optimal pick there. I don't think that Diva would have been awful, though. That is a good idea. Should Selfless have hit a flanker near the start? Sorry. Cough, cough, cough. Actually, let's drink some good old water. I don't like this water bottle at all. But it was the one I could find. It has so much resistance. Like, you have to be like a baby, like, suck on it so hard. Anyway, now that our voice is back, should Selfless have hit a flanker near the start to stop Rogue's Lucio from getting free push? Should Selfless have hit a flanker near the start to stop Rogue's Lucio from getting free push? In just like, oh, I see, at the very, very start. So remember, all of Selfless, all of Rogue dove up, and they had the one support sitting on the cart that was just pushing it the entire time. I think that doing that pretty much guarantees that your team will lose to that big dive. So it's a bit rough. I think that hiding a flanker near the beginning would actually be a viable option. It would stop the cart for a long time, and it would directly counter that strat. But at the same time, if they didn't do that strat, it wouldn't be so good. But for a metagame choice, I do think that would be a good idea, actually, to hide a flanker near the beginning. That wouldn't be necessarily terrible. Although you would be, a lot, like I said, a lot weaker up in the front. You pretty much couldn't hold the high ground or anything like that. So I think good idea. Very risky, though. Very risky. As a mid-masters player, ult management and my skill rating is suboptimal. Ult management at every skill rating is suboptimal. What can I personally do to make my team more aware of the enemy ultimates and which ultimates we commit to a fight? Team chat. Team chat. Just always be like, they have a Lucio ult, watch out. You know, we have to stagger out our offensive ultimates, or, you know, they have a blade, watch out. We have to save our barrier for that. Things like that. Just don't be too overbearing. Just kind of say it. People generally listen to you. Just don't order people around. Is Orisa bad against dive? Orisa is relatively bad against dive, yes. Orisa is quite suboptimal. Unless you're really, really, really good with her right click, which nobody is yet, obviously, because she's so new. Using the right click, though, is really... if you do it optimally, she can be pretty decent against dive. But if you don't, then she's very bad. So, all right, guys. All right, I think that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Do I have anything to announce? I don't think so. So we'll just let ourselves go on. I will, of course, continue the stream for you stream watchers. But for you YouTubers, I think we'll call it a day here for daily number 5. All right, guys, never forget to stay positive. Have a great day. Adios.